In the 6th year of our relationship, I found a small gift box containing a proposal ring inside my boyfriend Julian's coat pocket. On my birthday, full of anticipation, I instead saw a photo on social media, Julian and another girl entering a high-end couple's restaurant together. I rushed to the restaurant by taxi, only to witness him kneeling down to propose to another woman, while everyone around them cheered and urged them to be together. Having collected enough disappointment, I didn't throw a fit like before. I simply and quietly dialed my father's number. Dad, I agree to the arranged marriage with the Kim family. Let's start preparing the wedding. Chapter 1. My father was momentarily stunned by my words, then overjoyed. My sweet daughter, you've finally come around. In marriage, compatibility between families matters most. The simple pleasures outside, they're just little tastes along the way. But we can't live on plain porridge for a lifetime. I softly responded, while standing alone in the lobby of the restaurant, watching Julian and the girl embrace and kiss under the cheers of the crowd. Everyone was celebrating their happiness, while I stood there like a stiff, lifeless puppet. My father also heard the noisy commotion through the phone and urged me, "When will you come home? You should meet the Kim family's young heir. They've been pressing for the engagement for a while now. In 3 days, I'll wrap things up here first and then head back." After ending the call, I stood awkwardly among the lively crowd. Julian, hands trembling, slipped the ring onto the girl's finger. Then he rose and spotted me across the room. We stared at each other through the sea of people. Julian looked slightly surprised by my presence, frowned a little, but then turned away, holding the girl's hand as they returned to their seats. Roses, champagne, tender piano music, and a romantic candlelit dinner. In 6 years with Julian, we had never once gone to such a place together. I turned and left. Julian's close buddies were there too, the same ones whose social media post had exposed everything. Before walking away, I overheard them whistling and clapping. "You two really are a perfect match. Finally, after all these years. Come on, everyone. Cheers. Let's bless the happy couple. May true love always find its way." A bitter smile rose in my heart. In all these years by Julian's side, his friends never knew about me, but they were all well aware of his bond with her. A sour bitterness climbed up my throat. The sweet excitement I felt earlier, finding that ring in his pocket, had now turned into a poison burning through my veins. I took a taxi back home. Outside my apartment door, I found the birthday cake delivered by a courier. On the box was a card with Julian's handwriting, "Happy birthday, my darling, wishing you all the best." The delivery guy smiled at me with admiration. "Miss, your boyfriend must really love you. He ordered the most expensive cake from our store and even wrote the card by hand." I pushed open the door and carelessly placed the cake on the table. So he did remember it was my birthday. But what did he choose to do today? I collapsed onto the couch, tears welling up as I stared at the empty room. Every corner still bore traces of our life together. But my boyfriend had bought an engagement ring only to propose to another woman. Looking at the untouched cake, all I felt was disgust. I sat there, staring into space, until time slipped by unnoticed. Suddenly, the door swung open. Chapter 2. Julian returned in a hurry, holding a bouquet of flowers. He walked toward me without a hint of guilt on his face. "Helen, I brought you your favorite Lysianthus." Lysianthus, symbolizing loyalty and a unique love, now felt like a cruel joke in his hands. I took the bouquet. Julian, thinking I had forgiven him, began explaining. Carolina was diagnosed with bone cancer. Her only wish is to get married. We grew up together. I couldn't let her down. So 3 days from now, I'm getting engaged to her. You've always been so understanding. I'm sure you'll get it, right? His tone didn't sound like he was explaining, it sounded like he was informing me. 3 days from now? How fitting. I'd already planned to leave in 3 days. I quietly nodded. In the past, Julian couldn't stand my spoiled temper. He hated how I always sought reassurance, constantly asking if he loved me. So I changed. I learned to hold it all in. Now, I didn't cause a scene. I didn't even ask if he still loved me. Julian gave me a strange, somewhat surprised glance. "I'm moving out tomorrow to live with Carolina for the next few months. You'll have to stay here alone. She's sick. She needs me more than you do." I smiled faintly and placed the bouquet down. Julian, seeing no resistance from me, leaned in as if to touch my face. I turned away without a word. There was a lipstick stain glaringly obvious on his collar, and a sickly sweet perfume clinging to him, making me nauseous. Seeing my rejection, Julian's expression darkened. Without another word, he stormed out. I threw the flowers and the cake into the trash and began packing my things. I didn't want the flowers. I didn't want Julian. And I no longer had any attachment to this home where I had lived for 6 years. Chapter 3. The next day, I returned to the office and sat at my desk, printing out my resignation letter. Julian and I met and fell in love during college. After he joined this tech company, I followed him here, turning down my parents' arrangements to start from scratch alongside him. After we got together, I had gently hinted at marriage more than once, but Julian was always busy with work. He kept saying he hadn't yet achieved enough, afraid my parents wouldn't agree to let their precious daughter marry a man without a solid career. Establish your career first, then build a family, that was what he always told me. To avoid adding to his burdens, I quietly worked on my parents' attitudes behind the scenes, never revealing my true family background to him, afraid it would give him more pressure. When I found the ring in his pocket, I had foolishly believed he had finally made up his mind to propose. But in the end, it was all just wishful thinking on my part. A coworker walking by noticed the resignation letter on my computer screen and was surprised. "Helen, you're about to be promoted to director. Why are you resigning all of a sudden?" I smiled. "I'm getting married soon. I'll probably be working elsewhere afterward." My colleague Anna grinned and congratulated me. "Good things are happening all around. Just last night I saw Vice President Jin's post. He's getting engaged too. And honestly, he and his fiancée are a perfect match. They grew up together, childhood sweethearts, the love of each other's life." My smile stiffened. I checked my phone and saw that Julian had already blocked me, both on his personal and work accounts. Julian Jin's main account, meant for personal use, had blocked and deleted me after he left home last night. His work account only contained formal, business-like conversations between us now, nothing personal left. Just then, Julian walked into the office with Carolina. They stood very close. Carolina looked radiant, glowing with health, not at all like someone fighting a serious illness. Julian then introduced her to the team. "This is our new director of technology. Everyone, please welcome her and work together harmoniously." Anna's expression froze for a moment, her gaze shifting between Carolina and me, but she still bent slightly and greeted. "Director Caro, nice to meet you." I said nothing, silently tightening my grip on my resignation letter. Julian frowned at me with visible displeasure. "Helen, everyone's greeted the new director. What's with your attitude?" Carolina chuckled and extended her hand toward me. "Looks like we'll be working at the same company now. I hope we can get along." I had just reached out when Julian yanked Carolina's hand back. "You're the director now. You don't need to bother giving face to some low-level employee. Come, let's get you familiar with your new environment." And with that, the two of them walked off together, leaving me standing there awkwardly with my outstretched hand, looking like a complete fool. Chapter 4. Anna pulled me down into my chair and started gossiping. "Helen, did you see that? That's VP Jin's fiancé. That diamond necklace around her neck? It's the one VP Jin gave her yesterday. Heard it cost over $1 million. But honestly, the way VP Jin parachuted her into the company is a bit too obvious. You've been here for 5 years, everyone knows how capable you are, and he just handed your promotion away like it was nothing." I nodded absent-mindedly. I had already planned to resign. Carolina's sudden promotion only made me realize more clearly how little I meant to Julian. Gathering my documents and resignation letter, I knocked on Julian's office door. "Come in," he said coldly. I entered and placed all the handover documents, along with my resignation letter, neatly on his desk. Julian skimmed through the files. His face grew darker and darker as he read. Finally, he looked up at me, his mouth curling into a mocking smirk. "Helen, I thought you had finally matured, that you wouldn't throw tantrums over every little thing. And yet, here we are again." With that, he flung the documents directly at me. I dodged and quietly bent down to pick up the scattered papers. Julian continued ranting. "So what if you lost your promotion? Carolina has the same professional background as me. I trust her capabilities, that's why she's the new director. What right do you have to be upset?" I calmly stacked the documents and placed them back on his desk. It's not about being upset, I said. I simply want to resign. Carolina shared his major? And what about me? I had majored in jewelry design, but to catch up with Julian, I had taken on a second major in tech. 4 years. I worked relentlessly to keep pace with him, and yet to him, all my efforts were utterly worthless. Julian looked down at me, sneering. Deep down, you know you're not that talented, right? I've reassigned you to work under Carolina. You'll have plenty to learn from her. I smiled. My time is precious too. I won't waste it learning things I no longer care about. Fine. Then get out. I'd like to see which company will even want you after this. Julian shot up from his chair, his eyes blazing like a predator, but I simply turned and walked away without hesitation. Those 6 years with Julian? I'll treat them as feeding a dog. From now on, I'll never orbit around him again, let alone around Carolina. Chapter 5. At noon, I returned to my desk to pack my things. The little asteroid figurine sitting on my desk was a gift from Julian the year he graduated. Back then, he had sworn that I was his entire world. I let out a self-mocking laugh, took one last look at it, and decided to pack it along with the rest of my belongings. Just as I was carrying my box to leave, Carolina suddenly rushed in, looking flustered. Sorry, everyone, she said, but I seem to have lost the necklace I was wearing today. Could I ask for your cooperation in conducting a routine check? The office immediately buzzed with whispers. I saw Director Caro's necklace this morning. That diamond was huge. Sparkling like crazy. I think she's being polite. Honestly, someone probably saw how big and shiny that diamond was and got greedy. Oh my god. Are we saying there's a thief in our office? That would explain why my snacks keep disappearing from my desk. Julian stood beside Carolina and ordered the security team to block the exits. They started searching everyone one by one. When it was my turn, I calmly put my box down and allowed Julian to inspect it. He immediately spotted the asteroid figurine on top, paused for a second, but still instructed the guards to dump out all my things. The sound of everything crashing to the floor was deafening. The asteroid figurine shattered into worthless pieces, just like our 6 years together. Fractured beyond repair once a crack appeared. The guards rummaged through the mess, when suddenly Carolina gasped dramatically, clutching her mouth. My necklace! Everyone in the office turned toward us, their eyes zeroing in on me, their whispers slicing through the room like knives. My god! It was Helen who stole the new director's necklace. If VP Jean hadn't sealed off the exits, she would have gotten away by now. Unbelievable. Helen's always been so polite. You really can't judge a book by its cover. She's so petty just because the new director got promoted over her. She's way too small-minded. Good thing she's leaving. I'd be scared to share a room with someone who steals. My face turned pale. I hadn't touched Carolina's necklace. Someone must have tampered with my things during the time I went to hand in my resignation. Julian's face was thunderous as he picked the necklace out of the pile of debris. Holding the necklace, he looked at me with utter disappointment. Helen, he roared my name, while at his feet, my scattered belongings, including the shattered asteroid, were trampled mercilessly under his shoes. He even ground them further into the floor, as if grinding my dignity into dust. Before I could even react, Julian suddenly slapped me hard across the face. Apologize to Carolina. Why did you steal the necklace I gave her? At that moment, my heart completely shattered. He clutched the $1 million necklace he gave to Carolina in his hand, while mercilessly crushing the cheap gift he once gave me under his feet. In that instant, my tears spilled uncontrollably. Being misunderstood by my coworkers hurt, but it was nothing compared to the pain of that slap from Julian, the man I had loved for 6 years. He really didn't believe me. Seeing me stand there in silence, he grabbed me like I was a piece of trash and dragged me toward Carolina. I said, apologize. Explain why you stole it. A flash of triumph crossed Carolina's eyes before she quickly put on a frown and reached out, pretending to help me up from the cold floor. I slapped her hand away, clinging to the last shred of my dignity as I stood up by myself. Though my vision was blurred with tears, I stood tall and straight. I didn't take it, I said firmly. There are security cameras in this office. I demand we pull the footage to prove my innocence. And honestly, I stared straight into Carolina's eyes, emphasizing every word. I wouldn't even look twice at some measly diamond necklace. Chapter 6. Enough. Stop making a scene. Julian clamped his hand over my mouth and dragged me out of the office. His grip over my mouth and nose was so forceful it felt like he was trying to suffocate me. Meanwhile, I heard Carolina inside the office, laughing lightly as she addressed the others. Since the necklace has been found, it's no big deal. We're all colleagues after all, so I won't pursue it any further. I'll order afternoon tea for everyone later to thank you all. Julian seemed terrified that I might expose our relationship in front of everyone, so he dragged me into the break room. Talk. What exactly are you trying to do? Even crazy behavior should have its limits. He snapped, massaging his temples as if the whole situation was giving him a headache. I gasped heavily for air, purple bruises blooming across my face from his grasp. When did you become like this? Thank goodness Carolina is generous enough to forgive you. Now go and apologize to her immediately. I'm not apologizing. I didn't do it. Why should I admit to something I didn't do? I looked at him coldly. He asked me why I had changed, but I wanted to ask him, when exactly had he become so unrecognizable? Carolina entered the break room, carrying a paper cup of hot water. Helen, have some water and calm down. I know you must resent me, but next time, please don't be so impulsive. I refused to take the cup. Just then, Carolina got scalded by the hot water and accidentally spilled it all over my arm. Ah, it's so hot. Carolina cried out in pain as a few drops splashed onto her fingers. Julian immediately rushed to rinse her hand under the tap. As for me, dressed only in a thin chiffon blouse, the boiling water had soaked through the fabric, burning my arm badly. White steam rose from the scorched area. I went to the restroom alone to deal with the burn. Redness and blisters quickly spread across my wrist. When I returned to my desk, struggling to pack up my things despite the pain, Julian came out and grabbed my hand. Hiss, I gasped in pain. Julian froze and quickly let go. He stiffly asked, "Are you okay?" I almost laughed. The slap mark on my face, his doing. The burn on my wrist, Carolina's doing. Julian's feigned concern at this point only made me nauseous. I shook off his hand and swept all my scattered belongings straight into the trash. He looked like he wanted to say something, but in the end, he turned away, leaving only one sentence behind. You were too impulsive today. After cleaning up the mess, I headed straight to the surveillance room. I wasn't about to let them smear my name for nothing, but when I arrived, I found myself at a stalemate with the staff. I requested to review the office footage from this morning, but the staff blocked me, saying only internal employees could access the surveillance. I glanced at my employee account, already blacklisted and deleted. I understood immediately, Julian's doing. Only he could have arranged to have my access revoked so quickly. He had fully taken Carolina's side, already convinced I was the thief. But then I remembered, this tech company belonged to the Kim family. I needed to get home and meet with the Kim family's heir, Christopher Kim, as soon as possible, back at the apartment where I had lived for 6 years. I packed away everything that belonged to me, and at the same time, cleared this failed relationship from my life like taking out the trash. That evening, a delivery man showed up again, this time bringing a bag from the pharmacy. Inside was burn ointment. I tossed it onto the table and took one last look around the now empty apartment before leaving. The next day, I booked a flight back to Beijing. I handed over my unfinished work and properly briefed the person taking over my position. On the third day, dragging my suitcase behind me, I entered the airport alone. Right before boarding, for the first time, I sent a breakup message to Julian through his work account, the one he had always kept strictly professional. Chapter 7. Of course, like all the other colleagues, I also offered my congratulations on Julian and Carolina's engagement, and then deleted all of Julian's contact information from my life. When the plane touched down, my parents were already at the airport waiting for me. My mom grabbed my hand, her face full of concern. My sweet, sweet girl, you went off so far away for college and work. Look at you. You've gotten so thin. My dad patted me on the shoulder and said warmly, "It's good you're home." Standing beside them was a man with a tall, broad-shouldered frame and a narrow waist. He was wearing a perfectly tailored three-piece suit, his features sharp yet gentle, a faint smile playing at the corners of his lips as he looked at me quietly. His gaze was intense, it made me blush uncontrollably. I already had a strong guess as to who he was. My parents quickly introduced us, smiling from ear to ear. Hell, this is Christopher. I reached out my hand to him. Christopher's large, warm hand lightly clasped my fingertips. My fiancé, Christopher said with a soft, crinkled smile. Welcome home. My face turned bright red instantly. My parents beamed even more and gently nudged me closer toward Christopher. He took the suitcase from my hand with ease, and with just a glance, he noticed the burn on my wrist. Your wrist, what happened? Christopher asked. I didn't want to recount the humiliating incident from the break room, so I simply said it was an accident. Christopher's eyes darkened slightly, but he just reached out and patted my head lightly. From now on, you'll be my wife. You'll have to get used to me taking care of you. I answered softly, overwhelmed by his gentle kindness. After escorting me home, Christopher's first act was to open the medicine kit. He carefully lanced the blister on my wrist, treated the wound, and applied soothing ointment. I wasn't used to stepping out of one relationship and immediately into another, but Christopher simply said that he was willing to wait, as long as the person I ultimately chose was him. After Christopher left, still unsure how to be honest with him, my parents quickly noticed my heavy heart. Chapter 8. Hell, Christopher really is sincere about you, my parents said. He's the one we carefully picked for you. How could he possibly be wrong? I nodded. Christopher's tender, attentive care during the whole journey was clear for me to see, but when I thought about Julian and Carolina celebrating their engagement, basking in everyone's blessings, while I was falsely accused of being a thief, the bitterness rose again in my heart. In the end, I decided to tell my parents everything about the relationship. Julian had chased after me during college, and before we even graduated, we chose to be together. I had heard vague rumors about his childhood sweetheart, but since I had never seen Carolina around him, I never took it seriously. There had been one incident that now haunted me. Julian's study had a crystal globe on his desk. One day, while cleaning, I accidentally bumped it. Julian had immediately jumped up, shoved me away, and barked, "From now on, don't go into my study again, and don't touch anything in there." His face was dark with anger, yet when he turned around and gently cradled the crystal globe, his eyes were filled with indescribable tenderness. When I looked up at him from the floor, I caught a glimpse of the engraving at the base of the globe, a gift from Carolina. Now, thinking back on our 6 years of a purely platonic relationship, Julian would often say he loved me, but the most he ever did was hold my hand or lightly hug me. He was stingy even with a kiss. I had once asked him why he didn't have the normal desires a man would have for a woman. He answered, "My family's values are very conservative. We're only in the dating stage. These things should wait until marriage. I'm doing this because I love you." At the time, I had been deeply moved, even more determined to be with him, so much so that I ran away from home and rejected the marriage my parents had arranged for me. Now that Carolina had returned, I finally understood everything. All those years, Julian had been preserving himself for Carolina. In his drunken ramblings late at night, I had once heard him murmur that I wasn't even worth a strand of Carolina's hair. I had dismissed it then as drunken nonsense. But now, I finally saw the truth. Those drunken words were the most honest thing Julian had ever said to me. Chapter 9. After I finished telling my parents everything, they were heartbroken for me. My dad scolded half-heartedly. "Good. You needed to taste heartbreak firsthand to realize just how much we've always protected you." But even as he spoke, I noticed the veins bulging on the back of his hand, and his face looked so stormy it seemed he might charge off to beat Julian to a pulp. My mom hugged me tightly, comforting me. "It's all right, now that you're home. Let's not think about these miserable things anymore. It's just a diamond necklace. Tomorrow, I'll buy you a few more. You can wear a different one every day if you want." The sadness brought on by all those painful memories was suddenly swept away. I burst into tears, and then into laughter. That night, I finally slept peacefully. The next morning, my phone exploded with missed calls from an unknown number. I usually sleep with my phone on airplane mode, and as soon as I turned it back on, the endless notifications started dinging, dozens and dozens of missed calls. The ringtone blared again. Hesitating for a moment, I decided to answer. Whoever it was, they were far too persistent. "Hello?" I said. On the other end, a voice all too familiar barked back. "Helen, How long are you planning to keep up this nonsense? You moved out of the apartment? Where are you living now? Carolina has already agreed to let bygones be bygones. I won't even ask you to apologize to her anymore. If you come back to work, I'll promote you to be my assistant. I let out a cold laugh. Did you even bother reading the message I sent you yesterday? If you were too busy being showered with engagement blessings to notice, I don't mind telling you again. Julian suddenly went silent on the line, but I continued. We are over. Is that clear enough for you? Did you hear me? Without waiting for his reply, I hung up the call, and just for good measure, I blocked and deleted the number too. A new day had just begun, and Julian had already tried to ruin my mood. Annoying. Chapter 10. Having quit my job, I no longer had to waste my days studying computer science, a subject I had never liked. I had majored in jewelry design at university, and now I finally returned to my true passion, sketches and designs. That afternoon, while painting in the flower room at home, Christopher came by unexpectedly. He brought me a pearl and diamond tiara. The moment I saw it, I recognized it, a vintage piece from the last century, one I had only ever seen in books. I had always loved the lover's knot design on it. And the pearls were luminous, full, beautifully graded by size, perfectly blended with the diamonds, like drops of lover's tears suspended on the crown. He presented the tiara to me. I protested that it was too precious. But Christopher said he had commissioned it long ago for his future fiancée, and now, he was simply giving it to its rightful owner. At last, the doubts in my heart found a way out. I remembered that on my 18th birthday, I had fallen in love with this very tiara, only to find that it had been bought at auction for an astronomical price. So it was Christopher who had bought it. But how had he known back then that I would love it? Christopher smiled and explained. When he was 16, he had fainted suddenly on the shores of the Binjia Island and nearly drowned. It was I who saved him, tossing him a life buoy. The moment he opened his eyes, he had etched my face into his memory, believing I looked like an angel sent from above. And as fate would have it, his mother later became my university mentor. No wonder he knew my preferences so well. So, I said, teasingly, "You decided to propose an arranged marriage just to repay a favor? I wasn't even thinking about any of that when I saved you." And, truthfully, I hadn't even recognized him at first. How embarrassing. But Christopher shook his head gently. "Maybe," he said. "Do you believe in love at first sight?" I couldn't help but smile. Love at first sight? It sounded more like something out of a fairy tale. Christopher smiled too. I didn't believe in it either. But every time I see you, my heart tells me otherwise. His gaze was so tender, so deep, it threatened to drown me. My heart started pounding uncontrollably. Christopher said he had waited 10 years for me. When he found out I had a boyfriend, he had considered giving up. But when he learned that Julian had harbored a love for someone else all along, he realized Julian could never give me true happiness. That was when he decided to pursue me. Christopher pulled out a diamond ring and dropped to one knee. The ring slid perfectly onto my finger. "I hope you'll give me a chance to love you openly, boldly. You may not believe me now," he said, "but the future is long, and I'll spend every day proving it to you." Just then, my parents popped out from nowhere, each holding a bouquet of roses. Grinning ear to ear, they shouted, "Say yes! Say yes!" I thought back to that awful night at the couple's restaurant, how the spotlight and cheers belonged to someone else. But now, surrounded by flowers and laughter, the one in the center of it all was me. This time, I decided to be selfish for once, to dive headfirst into a love as overwhelming as a tidal wave. I slipped my finger fully into the ring. Tears sparkled in Christopher's eyes as he slowly pushed the ring all the way onto my hand, sealing me to him. My mom stepped forward and gently placed the pearl tiara onto my head. My dad, tears streaming down his cheeks, didn't forget to whip out his phone, snapping photos and recording every moment. Chapter 11. There was no grand wedding ceremony. My parents practically dragged me to the civil office with Christopher Kim and rushed us into registering our marriage, afraid I might change my mind. They even tied me tightly to the Kim family's household registry, as if sealing the deal for good. As for Christopher, I told him everything honestly about my first love with Julian. After listening quietly, Christopher gently traced the faint red scar on my wrist, his expression filled with heartache, and kissed it tenderly. I'll handle the surveillance footage. You don't need to worry about it. Once your wrist heals completely, I'll take you to pick out a wedding dress. I nodded, watching Christopher bustling around, joyfully handling all the preparations for our engagement party. In the past 6 years, it had always been me revolving around Julian's world. Now, with that toxic relationship completely severed, I finally felt light and free, as if a heavy burden had been lifted off my chest. Watching Christopher carefully selecting the venue, airlifting flowers from around the world, personally writing out the invitations, and hiring a professional team to design my wedding look, I finally understood what it meant to truly be loved. I realized that love should be mutual, not one person giving endlessly while the other only takes. I had given enough to Julian during those 6 years. Now, it was time for me to start a new chapter, a healthy, positive relationship. No, not just a relationship anymore. Christopher and I now had a stronger bond, marriage. A few days later, Christopher told me that he had helped clear my name regarding the surveillance footage. Everyone at the company now knew the truth. Carolina had staged the entire theft incident just to push me out of the company. On the very day the footage was released, Carolina was taken away by the police on charges of slander and defamation. Naturally, she was also stripped of her title as technical director. As for the slap Julian had given me, Christopher didn't let that slide either. He filed a compensation claim against Julian on my behalf. Not for the money, but to publicly expose Julian, revealing our past relationship to the entire company. When Christopher told me about it, he looked a bit guilty, glancing at me cautiously. Did I overstep? Does this make you uncomfortable? I quickly curved my lips into a smile. For the first time, I said, I know how wonderful it feels to have someone standing behind me. Christopher's brows relaxed, and joy rippled through his eyes like sunshine on a clear lake. Chapter 12. Later, when the scar on my wrist fully healed, Christopher took me to pick out a wedding dress. Outside the boutique, after all this time, Julian appeared once again, holding a bouquet of lisianthus flowers. Helen, he said, I'm not marrying Carolina. I've realized where my heart truly lies. The only one I love now is you. His words and actions were utterly ridiculous. I turned my head away in disgust. The moment I saw Julian, the memory of him kneeling on the ground proposing to Carolina on my birthday replayed vividly in my mind. And now, using lips that had kissed another woman, he dared to tell me he loved me? It was laughable. I couldn't even be bothered to look at him, standing there, disheveled with stubble and messy clothes. He couldn't even compare to a single strand of Christopher's hair. I held Christopher's arm and walked around Julian, ignoring him completely, but Julian ran after me and grabbed my wrist. He shoved a pile of medical records in front of me. Carolina never had bone cancer. She lied to us. If I had known she was never sick, I would never have chosen to get engaged to her. Helen, please, just look at it. Please. I swear I'm telling the truth. Julian's bloodshot eyes brimmed with tears. His voice cracked with desperation. Seeing this, Christopher immediately pulled Julian's hand off my wrist. Julian, Christopher said sharply, I hope you'll show some respect. Keep your inappropriate thoughts away from my wife. Without hesitation, I slapped the worthless stack of papers out of Julian's hand. Whether Carolina was sick or not had nothing to do with me anymore. The things Julian had done could never be erased by a few fake medical records. There was no going back. Julian's delusions were pathetic. The papers scattered across the ground. Seeing Christopher's slightly jealous expression, I leaned even closer to him, crossing right over the fallen pages without sparing Julian a single glance. When Julian had once thrown resignation papers and documents in my face, did he ever imagine there would be a day when he would kneel on the ground, red-eyed, begging for my forgiveness? Time could never turn back, and I would never forgive him. But hating him would only waste my energy, so the best thing I could do was treat Julian like a complete stranger. Yet Julian still refused to give up. He picked himself up from the ground and charged at Christopher, fists raised. You're the one who ruined everything. You stole Helen from me. Christopher immediately let go of my hand to protect me, and was knocked down by Julian's rage-fueled attack. I quickly called over the boutique security staff. This was a high-end, private wedding boutique. Their clients were all extremely wealthy. Protecting their customers was their duty. Within moments, Julian was pinned to the ground by security guards. I didn't even spare him a glance. Instead, I rushed to help Christopher up, my heart aching with worry. Through the crowd, Julian finally realized there was no longer a place for him in my heart or in my eyes. He had lost the girl who once loved him with her whole soul, and I had finally found someone who loved me just as fiercely in return.